Hello and welcome to our ongoing series of conversations with people that are making a difference with how it is that we live our digital lives. Extremely fortunate today to catch up with Barbara Lange. She is the Executive Director for the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, or SMPTE. Barbara, thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
So Barbara, SMPTE is celebrating or has celebrated its centennial, but I wanted to get your perspective on more recent changes technologically and operationally that you've seen that are affecting the segment of the market that you serve as the leader of SMPTE.
Yes, well over 100 years, there's been plenty of technical advancements in the motion imaging space. And if we even look more recently, since I joined SMPTE, smartphones had only just recently been released, and the iPad hadn't even been invented, or at least not deployed. And yet today we see that 80% of the internet traffic is full of video. And while much of that is consumer-generated content, a lot of it is also professional video being produced by content creators that require a great deal of technical innovation to make it a quality image no matter where the consumer sits. And so it's important that an organization like SMPTE, which is made up of engineers and scientists and digital technologists, that we support the quality of that motion image no matter where it's delivered, whether it's on that handheld or on a television screen or in a cinema. And we continue to do that 100 years on.
Interesting. So these changes, particularly the move to the internet, the move to over-the-top players, and not only that, we're also seeing companies like Amazon Studios develop, Academy Award-winning hits in traditional media and the film. I'm thinking of Manchester by the Sea as an example. But how do you think this shift strategically affects folks that have traditionally worked in traditional media, whether it's broadcast or making motion pictures as we traditionally understand them? What do you think are the new challenges or opportunities or business models that this creates for that segment of the audience?
Yes, well, as things have migrated to this more digital environment, it creates new business opportunities, which is why you're seeing people like Amazon and Netflix and others, as well as, the traditionalists, we'll call them, in broadcast and motion pictures, and how do they adapt to these new technologies and try to make that shift successfully. And I think we're starting to see that. Certainly, the traditionalists are being challenged by what the new, I'll call them the new media sector, have to offer, and in some respects they can leapfrog what has been done before. The challenge for an organization like ours is to help our members navigate those crazy times, whether they are traditionalists who are trying to move from an existing broadcast or motion picture studio environment into one that is very digital, or they're newbies coming from a digital native environment and trying to understand what it means to have a quality motion image. We, as an organization, need to be there to support both of those angles. We do most of that through our three pillars of activities, one being just being a membership organization where we tie these like-minded individuals together around the world. But we also, of course, are an industry standards body, and that's an important element to enable interoperability within systems, no matter whether they're traditional systems or these new environments. And then, of course, we help educate the industry on those technologies so that the skill sets can be adapted and people can navigate their own careers through these changing landscapes. I think if I could dive in just a little bit into the standards world, many or some people say, well, in this environment of software development and more digitally oriented content, why do you need standards? And I happen to believe that you probably need standards now more than ever because it's almost too easy to create content, and the proliferation of formats can become chaotic. And so I think having a body that has a due process, that really follows through on making sure that consensus-driven standards become a very important way for these systems to interoperate. And I must say it is working, because we have projects where you see a traditional broadcaster sitting alongside an Amazon and a Netflix in the same room talking about the technology in the same way, because after all, we're talking about the quality of a motion image, and that's what's really critical. So we are navigating these waters together with the industry and hoping to keep things aligned as best we can.
So, Barbara, as you think about the new dynamics of the market that you serve, where do you think the thinking is going? How do executives and organizations need to rethink the way they invest time, money, and human resources in creating the kind of technological infrastructure for the new great variety of current and new forms of entertainment?
It's clear that the internet really has, if I may use this term, Uberized the media industry. There's convergence happening in many different directions, and we've already talked a bit about the investment in skill set and in educating, because we all have to work together to make sure that the industry continues to grow. And while that is critical, there's also other areas that I believe that we need to invest as the industry evolves. And that is in a world of, alongside standards from our vantage point, alongside standards, there's this notion of applying standards into actual implementation at the facility, at the broadcast facility or whatever professional media facility you may have. And this is a notion of industry specifications. And while they are not traditional standards, standards are sometimes used as a basis to apply and turn into specifications. And we, SMPTE, believe that specifications is another place where SMPTE ought to have some input. And we recently announced a project where we were working with the digital production partnership in the UK on a pilot project that's taking one of our standards, a standard called IMF, the Interoperable Master Format, and developing a specification for the use of IMF in very specific broadcast and online distribution needs. And the idea, we hope, is that this would be a model for ongoing work. So you'd have two categories of documents, one being very specific standards that kind of talk to the industry's acceptance of a particular technology, where the industry comes together and builds a consensus around that technology. And then you have applications of that technology in the form of a specification, which could vary. A standard can have different applications, and we as an organization feel that it's important that we look into that space and see if that's where we ought to be going. Because one of the benefits of a specification is that it's rapid turnaround, and that's something that the industry is really eager to see. So that's a new area, and it's a new area that we feel can support the industry in something that they're asking for.
Very interesting. As you look ahead and you look at what you see on the horizon, what are some of the key technological trends that you think are going to continue to disrupt or change your business?
Well, along with this specification idea, we are continually improving on the quality of the motion image. Right now, there's a big move for HDR and wider color gamuts and things of that nature, as well as immersion in image and sound. And one of the other key areas that we feel is going to be really revolutionary is this notion of moving professional media over IP networks. And so we are about to publish a new standard called SMPTE ST 2110, which specifically addresses this need. And it really is revolutionary. It is perhaps going to be one of those markers that we will be defined by, just like adding sound and color to film were almost 100 years ago. This is a technology that enables interoperability across many systems and many different manufacturers of material of equipment, and really does allow for a professional media facility to use the IP network as its mechanism for delivering content from Part A to Part B to Part C and beyond. We've been working on this standard with industry for a little while, and are really excited to be able to publish that in just a couple weeks' time. As I mentioned, with video being such an important part of our daily lives, it's going to be really critical that it's efficient to process, and that's what this standard will do. There are a couple of other standards that are out and in the field and already making an impact. One, and it is related to the fact that there's so much content out there, is called the Archival Exchange Format, AXF. And as more and more content is being created, it has to be stored somewhere. It has to be made accessible somewhere. It has to be managed somewhere. And AXF is a format that enables that to happen and has been adopted by many organizations, both traditional and new, as well as being adopted by ISO most recently. And then I mentioned earlier the IMF interoperable master format. It's another standard that's been really embraced by the media industry because it creates a cost-efficient way to distribute content without having excessive versioning. And for anybody who's creating content for multiple distribution around the world knows that one piece of content can quickly turn into several thousand versions, and the IMF standard will help to minimize that and obviously offer some cost effectiveness for that. So these are just a few of the technologies that we've been working on that I hope will be very influential in the industry, will offer efficiency gains, and will enable the industry to move much more quickly and more cost effectively going forward.
Very interesting. One of the other areas that seem to be generating a lot of interest and engagement and buzz, if not yet, perhaps it's a standards issue, if not yet adoption, is this whole notion of virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. Do you guys see a role for SMPTE in this immersive experience environment? You've mentioned immersive in the context of sound, but is that a space for you as well?
Yes. In fact, we're just getting started with that. It's always a challenge to understand when is the right time for a standards body to get involved. And we've been approached by a couple of people to look at developing standards in the VR space. So we are just starting that work now. And we're very excited about it. I mean, VR seems to be everywhere now. AI and machine learning, those could be next topics. But yes, absolutely, we are exploring what needs to be done to help the VR space have quality images so that the consumer has a good experience. Yes.
Okay, so just sort of winding down, as you think about where SMPTE has been in the last 100 years, how do you plan to engage with members and other key players in the industry as you contribute to the development of this entertainment technology sector?
Well, I'd have to say that our greatest strengths over the 100 years, and I think ongoing, will be the network of people that we can bring together. And we will continue to do that. We have nearly 7,000 individuals, over 250 companies who support SMPTE as members, and that shows that this is a network of people who are committed to improving the quality of the motion image. And it's our job to really ensure that we provide the facilities to enable that to happen. We'll continue to develop educational resources that support the skill set development as the industry evolves, and of course make sure that we have a standards program that is in support of this system interoperability, which is the basis of our founding so many years ago. So we're proud to be around for already 100 years, and based on our rich history and heritage, we are looking forward to continuing that. And I may not be around for the second centennial milestone, but I certainly want to lay the foundation for a very strong next century.
Outstanding. Barbara, thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.